We're looking at solving right triangles. What have we used with right triangles this year? Pythagorean theorem, right? Can we use Pythagorean theorem here? Why not? You have to have either H or Y, correct? We only have one of the A, B, and C. You have to have at least two to use Pythagorean theorem. So what we are going to have to do instead, any ideas? Yes. We're going to use either sine, cosine, or tangent. So what would be the easiest thing to figure out first? B. Isn't B going to be the easiest to find? What does angle B have to be? No, it is not 114. How'd you get 66? 180 minus 24 minus 90. Does that make sense? Any questions on finding B? Okay, do y'all want to find H or Y next? I don't care. Y? Okay. How can we find Y? Okay, sine uses which two angles? I mean, two sides. So would we want to use sine? Would we want to use cosine to find Y? Does that have Y in it? Okay, so tangent of what angle? Tangent is 24. What is tangent? Opposite over adjacent. What is opposite 24? Y. What is adjacent to 24? Yes. Because I wanted to find Y, and that would be the easiest one to use. Well, when we went over it, sine gave you Y over H, which didn't help because you had two variables. Sine was Y over H, which that doesn't help. Cosine didn't have Y in it. It was 9.5 over H. So that's why we use tangent. So how could I solve for Y? Just set it, put it in the basket. How do I get rid of this 9.5? If I multiply by 9.5 on that side, what do I have to do up here? Does that make sense? So Y equals 9.5 tangent of 24. Does that make sense? So see if you can plug that into your calculator correctly. Okay, have Y and H. Just type that into your calculator. Exactly as it's written, right? 9.5 tangent of 24. Do you agree? Any questions there? I solved for Y. I'm multiplying both sides by 9.5. Any questions on finding the Y? Okay, so we have y is equals 4.2. Could we use Pythagorean theorem to find h? But if, not really, but let's say that we mess up finding y. Would that mean that we would mess up finding h? So let's find h not using Pythagorean theorem. Find it using sine, cosine, or tangent. That way, at least we'll know if we got one of them right. Or we'll be more likely to get h right if we got y wrong. Does that make sense? Would I use it? You had to. It was just a variable. Cosine of what? Cosine of 24 degrees. What is the cosine of 24? Adjacent. What is adjacent? 9.5 over hypotenuse, which is 8. Does that make sense? Do y'all see how that works? Any questions so far? Okay. I need to get h out of the denominator. Multiply by h. Okay. What happens here? What do I have to do over here? So I have h times cosine of 24 equals 9.5. Cosine of 24 is like one thing, so you can't split it up. What is h going to be? 9.5 times cosine of 24? 9.5 divided by cosine of 24. Do you have to have a calculator for these? There are some that you will not need a calculator for. We'll get to those later. You got what? I would say not. Did you do 9.5 or did you do 95? Because if you do 95, you got. Okay. Any questions on this one? I'll see how that works. How can I check and make sure that I probably got my y and my h right? Pythagorean theorem. See if that works for the Pythagorean theorem. Does it work? 9.5 squared plus 4.2 squared, and then you take the square root of it, and you should get 10.4. Did you do 9.5 squared plus 4.2 squared? And what'd you get? Yeah. And then what do you do? Because that's equal to c squared. Square root, do you see the x squared button? Show her where the square root button is. Y'all see how that works? So that's how you check these. Use Pythagorean theorem and make sure that it works. If it doesn't, go back and look, see what you did wrong. Any questions so far? Okay. Yeah, it wasn't exactly because we had rounded. So it should be really close. Sine, cosine, and tangent. That's all of these are practicing. Okay, let's look at another one. You can only use trig, well, you only have learned how to use trig for right triangles. There is a way to use trig for non-right triangles. You will learn it next year. B equals what? Do you agree with that? Do y'all want to find m or x first? M? Okay. What would you use to find m? Cosine of what? What would be the cosine of 35? Adjacent is m over 14, your hypotenuse. Yeah. Yeah, just one decimal. We're finding m, so we want to use m in our equation. No, it doesn't. Well, if you use tangent of 35, what would you get? No, look on the problem. If you use tangent of 35, what would you have? Look at the picture. If you use tangent of 35, what would you have? You're not, Miranda, look at the picture. What would it be? Does that help you any? You only have one variable and one number to be able to solve on. Okay? What sine would be for to find to find x. And we'll do that one in just a second. Okay? So what are we going to do to solve for m? And whatever here. So m would equal 14 cosine of 35, which I'll say is what? Yes. I don't know that it really matters that much. If it's wants it to matter, it'll specify. Does that make sense on those? Any questions so far? Yes. You could, if you wanted. The reason I'm not using the 55, what if I made a mistake when I found 55? Does that make sense? You want to use the numbers they give you, not the ones you find, if at all possible. But no, you could use the 55 if you want. Yes. If you use 55 to find m, you'd have to say the sine of 55 would be m over 14. Because the opposite and the adjacent switch up whenever you change things. Does that make sense? Okay, so how can we find x? Okay, sine of 35. What is the sine? Opposite is what? What is our hypotenuse? So what would x have to be? So 8. Did you use x and m? That's fine. I mean, you can. If you, did you do tangent of 35 equals x over? Then you couldn't use tangent because tangent is x over m. Opposite over adjacent. Because we did the sine of it. Opposite over hypotenuse. Remember what I told you yesterday you have to memorize? That's what we're using. Any other questions? Okay? Check and make sure that we did it correctly. We rounded on some of them, so it might not be exact, but it should be really, really close. Any questions on these? Y'all see how they work? Okay. See if you can find these by yourself. Try it by yourself. Try it by yourself. A and B. 7, 6, and X. Yeah, I would. They did. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. That's the right one. My seniors have an issue with putting, some of them have an issue with putting their test in the correct folder. Right. Like some of them put them in third hour, some of them put them in fifth hour. About half of them look like it. They said it was supposed to rain. Yeah. My dad's son buddy is helping us redo our front yard. He like went and did something in the yard so that it wouldn't mess up when it rained. But it hasn't rained at all. Okay. Any ideas how to find X? What did you get for X? Square root of 13. Does that make sense? Any questions on X? Okay. What is different about the A and the B? Okay. You want to use sine, cosine, or tangent? Cosine. What is the cosine of this angle? 6 or 7? Wait. Any questions on that part? adjacent over. You could have picked sine, and you could have used x. Yeah, you would have done x over 7. Yeah. You could use sine of a and say x over 7. And since we know what x is, we can use it. Does that make sense? You could do tangent. You would say tangent of a would be what? X over 6. Does that make sense? Okay. How would we figure out what a would be? Cosine inverse of 6 over 7. Remember, when you're looking for an angle, which one do you use? You use inverse. Did you do cosine inverse? Oh, no, well. Cosine inverse of 6 over 7 is 31 degrees. Oh, yeah. Y'all see how to get the 31? Okay, we're going to use trig to find b. You know what b is, right? So we're going to practice using trig. I want you to practice using trig on these. Don't do the 90 minus whatever if you can try and do trig. Does that make sense? Yeah, you can check it. I mean, you know what it is. So if we don't get it, then we've done something wrong with the trig. But we want to practice our trig functions so that we know those. Yeah, okay. Yeah, 180 minus 90 minus 31 would give you b. Now that you know what a is. What could I set up to find b using trig? Not sin. What is that? Sine. What angle are you going to use? Why are we going to use b? No. What is the sine of b? 6 over 7. You see how that works? Okay. So b is sine inverse of 6 over 7. Sine inverse of 6 divided by 7. Any questions on this one? You'll see how they work? So when you're looking for angles, what do you have to use? If you don't use inverse, you can't find your angles. Does that make sense? Any questions on these? Is it imperative for you to learn what the side ratios are for sine, cosine, and tangent? If you refuse to learn them, you're going to get these wrong every single time. Does that make sense? SOHCAHTOA, 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 whatever. Okay. I don't care how you learn it, but you have to learn them. There's no way to do these without using trig. You can find one of them using Pythagorean theorem or doing 180 for all three of the angles, but you won't be able to find all three of them unless you learn the trig. Yes. Well, we don't know what A and B are, so is it an isosceles triangle? Does that make sense? Any other questions on these? So do you have to learn what sine, cosine, and tangent are? Okay. All right, go ahead and pull out your homework questions from last night.